Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you can. I'm just getting the PowerPoint up. Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, then I will try and do something about it. Oh, good. You can hear me. Excellent. Right, I'm just getting the PowerPoint up. So give me 1 second. Oh, someone's got their mic on. I don't mind if you got your mic on, but yeah, as in, you know, turn it on when I talk to you. But if I get feedback, you might just have to keep it off at the moment. So apologies, the PowerPoint is taking a while to wake itself up. I am doing it a different way to hopefully get it open. I hope you're good morning. I hope you're all ready to talk to me. One of the most important things about politics A-level is the ability to be able to talk and discuss and share opinions and debate with each other. That's all really, really important. So hopefully you are ready for that. I genuinely don't know who's got their mic on, but it is. I need to, like, if you all have a check for me, if you've got your mic on, yeah, because it will just, we'll get loads of feedback. Okay, here we go. Let's. Right, so we will give people a couple more minutes. There's 17 of you in here at the moment. That is amazing. I hope you are all feeling great and you've had a good break, as it were, ready for the challenges of A-levels next year. So hopefully you can see the images. And if you want to turn your mic on at this point or just answer in the chat, that is also absolutely fine. There are some pictures up there of people and places and things. And so basically, I want you to kind of have a think about who those people are. Can we name all those people that you can see on that first screen, and to kind of like maybe also say what it means to you in terms of politics. So have a quick look at all those pictures. Tell me what you think about any of those pictures. Do you know who any of those people are? Hopefully there's a couple of people there that you instantly recognize. There might be a couple that you don't necessarily know who they are, but you might be able to work it out. So let me know in the chat or turn your mic on. We now have silence. Coal marks, lovely. Thank you, Charlotte. That's great. Yeah, we have got coal marks there. Here's one of the ones I was thinking people might not know. Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Alessandro. We have got the lovely Boris Johnson there as well. Yeah, thank you, Hannah, and Donald Trump as well. He obviously former president of the United States. Yep, thanks, Maddie, as well. We've got Barack Obama, another former president, and the European Union. Yep, the European Union flag. Well done, Maddie and Joseph. Yep, and Maddie, excellent. Yep, seeing the Black Lives Matter is obviously a massive political movement that started up a few years ago and has seen kind of like lots of upturns in the last few years. Yeah, the judges of the Supreme Court. Yep, well done, Charlotte. Again, they are obviously that is a slightly old picture because Ruth Bader Ginsburg unfortunately died last year, but they are the from 2020. Atlee, yep, excellent, well done. It says S. Smith, so I'm sorry, I don't know what your first name is, but well done. And yes, Alexandra as well, and Maddie, excellent. Yeah, Clement Atlee. So he is someone is particularly famous and quite topical at the moment for a certain anniversary that has been celebrated very recently. Yes, well done, Nora. That is Downing Street, where our Prime Minister lives. And climate change, yes, thank you, Hannah. Yeah, we have got, there's obviously been a lot of wildfires at the moment. all around the world. Unfortunately, Australia, California, and Canada have had some really bad ones at the moment. So yes, climate change is another thing that we do look at in politics A levels. So I think we've covered all those pictures. Thank you very much. That's great. It's great to know that you know so many people, kind of well known and less well known as well. So what I'm going to do really quickly, and obviously this is something that you can go back and read over at the end. I will put this PowerPoint on to this team for you so that you can go back and have a look at it. So the politics A level is split into 3 papers that you'll sit in your year 13, and each are worth a third each. So we have got the government and politics of the UK, which is in the winter and spring of your year 12. So we'll start off kind of like at the very beginning, looking at our country, how our country works, the political kind of features of our country. Then unit 2 is the USA, and we kind of start that in the kind of April of year 12. It depends obviously on timings. This year, as you know, has been a bit crazy, so we're not quite sure. So we do that going through from summer into the winter of year 13. And then the last paper is political ideas, and that is ideologies. So that is kind of different thoughts and concepts about politics is the third paper. So that is kind of the exam structure and breakdown. And this is our paper 1. So it's these are the things that are covered in there. So we have the bits on government, which is constitution, parliament, prime minister, and the judiciary. And then the politics side of it is democracy and participation, like when do people get the vote, who should be able to vote, should 16-year-olds be able to vote, and then political parties, elections and referendums. We look at a couple of referendums and elections in detail, and pressure groups as well. Then your paper 2, just as a quick breakdown again, you've got Congress, the presidency, again, elections and voting, the Supreme Court, political parties. So very similar to the UK. This paper is all about comparing the US and the UK and seeing what is the same and what is different, whereas the first paper is purely about kind of the UK politics and how it works. And then the last paper that we go do in year 13 is all to do with these ideologies. So we have conservatism, we have socialism, liberalism, and ecologism are the 4 ideologies that we study for this unit. And so if any of you have been in my classroom, which is Humanities 7, you will have seen some of those posters up on the wall, and next year hopefully you'll see them as well. We kind of use them in the lessons as well as everything else. So that is the kind of key breakdown. If anyone's got any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat now, or if you would like to just kind of like save your questions to the end, then that is absolutely fine, because yeah, I've kind of whizzed through that super quickly, and you might want to kind of go back and have a look through it, which is all good. So what I thought we'd start with, oh, Nicole, you've got your hand up, go on. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to hear you. Let me just turn my mic up, that might be the problem. Yeah, I'm sorry, Nicole, you're going to have to type it in the chat, unfortunately. It doesn't look like the sound is working on this computer. I'm not really sure why. But yeah, if you type your question in the chat for me, I'm going to... Oh, it was an accident after all that. Oh, well, that's okay, it's all right. It's... hopefully we will be completely in real life in starting in September, and we won't have to do it on Teams anymore, but it is useful to have on Teams so that we can talk to each other occasionally. Yeah, don't worry, save your questions for the end, essentially, if anyone's got any more, because yeah, we'll just wait till then. Okay, but starting off with, and it looks like we're going to have to do this in the chat rather than using the sound. I've got a question for you. Oh, that's okay, Dior. It's all right. You're here now, so it's all good. So this is the question. We love a good debate in politics A level. Like those are some of the best, most fun lessons where you feel like I've probably not written very much down, but I feel like I've learned an awful lot. And I think that's the real difference between A level and GCSE is the fact that, you know, you're with people that are all enjoying the subject, all want to have a discussion about it. And you go back home and you might write up notes, or you'll kind of go back through the PowerPoint and like highlight the key bits. But in the actual lesson, you're kind of like in the midst of it, really discussing something. So, which is great. So this House believes we should enforce compulsory voting in general elections. I believe that we should make people vote in general elections. I think so many people died for the right to vote, and people still struggling now to get the vote. And in America, they're trying to change laws to make it more difficult for certain people to vote. I think that we should make voting compulsory, like they do in Australia and like they do in a couple of other countries. What I'm throwing it open to you guys as to what you think. Do you think we should make voting compulsory? Do you think people should be turning up for general elections and choosing our prime minister and the political party that leads our country? What do you think? Let me know in the chat, unfortunately, because the mics aren't working. Yes, really good point, Saoirse. Yeah, definitely. You've got people do love a complaint, don't they? But yeah, then they don't then they don't participate. Yeah, definitely, Charlotte. Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? It's laziness or lack of like education. So then maybe they don't know what they should be voting for. That's a good point. Some people maybe don't feel very informed about it. Yeah. Um, yes, I agree, Maddie, as well. Yeah, kind of like similar to what Charlotte said, wasn't it? You know, if people have the access to know like what the parties are and what's in their best interest, then they might feel happier voting, mightn't they? Yeah, again, yeah, Caitlin, no, it's true, isn't it? We all agree, people love the complaining, but then kind of don't turn up. I've got people in my family who do exactly that. Yes, exactly, Hannah. Yeah, you kind of like you will please more people probably if you're more participating in it. It kind of makes people feel it's important, but also the liberty of voting is important as well. You know, if people don't like anyone that is standing for election, I guess that's also your choice, isn't it, not to vote for them? Yeah, your true opinion, definitely. Yeah, if you only have small turnouts, then you don't have great. You don't really know what the public think, do you? Thanks, Charlotte, for that. Yes, that's true, Maddie. Some people do vote because maybe they only focus on certain things rather than others. So definitely, yeah, Joseph, that's a really good point. I do think that some people don't feel represented, so maybe they don't have a political party that they feel akin to. So it's maybe looking at other options, isn't it? Like independent voters, independent candidates, that kind of thing. Yeah, Charlotte's agreeing with you. Yeah, I think it's yeah. Yes, it is that underestimation, isn't it, Saoirse? Yeah, completely. Like one vote won't change anything. If we all went around and said, "Oh well, if I do that, then it won't change anything," and it's that kind of like mass of people suddenly going, "Well, actually, if we all do this, then something will definitely happen for sure." Yeah, uh, I think lots of you have said that, isn't it? Education is one of those ones that's so important, isn't it? If people know what they're voting for, who they're voting for, what particular party maybe represents them better than others, it helps, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a really good point, Alessandro. Yeah, no, I think so. People feel like it's a two-party system in this country a little bit, don't they? Because the Conservatives and Labour have been so dominant for so long that yeah, it can put people off voting. But there are plenty of other parties out there. We will look at them over the course of next year and talk about, like how the Green Party, how the Liberal Democrats, and all the kind of smaller parties, particularly in like Northern Ireland and things like that, have got some really great policies. Yes, yeah, exactly, Charlotte. You can do that. I think it's that kind of thing, isn't it? If you turn up to the polling station, and if you score your vote, they count the scored votes. They can, if people choose not to vote for anybody, then that is kind of noted, and so they know that people turning up are basically saying, well, I'm not really sure I like any of them. completely. You can draw on it, you can do a smiley face, you can do what you like on it essentially, and it will count as a spoiled paper. So yeah, definitely. Okay, that sounds good. So some really good opinions there. I'm really thinking about it. We'll talk about this. This is one of the first bits that we look at in September. We talk about like participation, how to increase participation, like the different types of democracy and how people can get their kind of like their thoughts and opinions across. But at the end of the day, isn't it? You're voting for an MP, and if the political party with the most MPs win a parliament, they're the ones that make the government. So some people might feel that their vote is a little bit like a wasted vote, like kind of linking back into what Alessandro was saying. If you haven't voted for the Conservatives or for Labour, it can potentially put you off a little bit. Does anyone know a way in which you can get direct democracy? So literally what you vote for, what you do, can make a decision, can make something happen within our kind of political system. Does anyone know what that's called when you have like a direct vote, a yes or no vote, or a yay or nay vote? Does anyone know what that's called when you have a kind of direct kind of link to government, making a direct decision for them, not kind of voting for an MP? Yes, excellent. Yeah, well done, Alessandro. Yeah, it is a referendum. And I think referendums are kind of quite, well, they're still quite controversial at the moment, hasn't it? Because it's kind of the EU referendum has dragged on for a few years now. We've still been talking about Brexit, it feels like, for a very long time. And we will probably continue to talk about Brexit for a little bit longer. Yeah, so direct democracy, good old Brexit. Yes, indeed. Everyone loves that subject, doesn't they? We do talk about it a bit, obviously, when we come to talk about the European Union, kind of like later in year 12. So referendums are held, sorry, in the USA, in the UK, in lots of countries, in most European countries as well. And sometimes you could think that we've held an awful lot of them recently. We've obviously had the 2014 one for Scotland's independence, and they are obviously pushing for another one at the moment now that we have left the European Union. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, Maddie? I think what there was that kind of the Electoral Commission did a study into the EU referendum, into Brexit, and the kind of fallout from that was that lots of people did feel like they weren't informed enough about kind of like what the consequences potentially be for both things. Because I mean, when we look at the European Union, we'll talk about the fact is there are negatives to being in the European Union. There are problems, there are issues with the European Union for definite, and we need to kind of like look at both sides of it and say, okay, well, this is this point and this is that point. And it is a really interesting discussion because getting into kind of like why people felt they had to vote that way. Well, yes, the Remainers argument, that's it. Why would you vote for Brexit? It's kind of like, but why would you vote to stay in an organisation as well? So I think it's still very, very controversial. Yeah, I think that was part of the problem, wasn't it? There was definitely a mood, and I think certain newspapers didn't help that as well, in terms of like anti-immigration and things like that. And I think that's one of the things we do talk about definitely throughout this course is the fact that media, we can see at the moment, can't we? Like the media have gone completely crazy, haven't they? After last night's match, they're all literally, going crazy and said, "Oh, England are going to win," blah 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 blah. 60 years of hurt, or however many years it's been. And the media can really influence politics in quite a long way. So I think that it is part of the problem as well, isn't it? Yeah, you think we should have more referendums? Well, I think in terms of like directly getting involved in the political kind of features of our country, referendums are really, really good. It's just unfortunately sometimes if you have such a close um, finish like we did for the Brexit referendum. It was like 48% Remain, 52% Leave. It was very, very close. I think that's why it's been quite so controversial over the last like 4 or 5 years almost. What do you think, Matthew? Yes, that's true. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think, and that's kind of what we can talk about as well, isn't it? Like referendums don't have to be like yes or no. You could put different options into a referendum, but then, I mean, there's problems with that as well, isn't there? What do you think might be a problem with having more choices than like a yes or a no or a leave or remain? Yeah, that's a good point, Maddie. Yeah, I think so. If people are educated, they're quite good, so they can make that informed decision, isn't it? But yeah, okay, no, thank you, Dior. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Like linking into what everyone else is saying as well. It's if you don't have enough knowledge, you can't necessarily choose, and you might make a wrong decision, or you might kind of regret your decision after it's happened because you didn't actually know what you were voting for. Like there's a referendum back in 2011 to change the voting system to make it not quite so a two-horse race with the Conservatives and Labour, and it was a really bad turnout. I think it's only about 48% of people turned out to vote in that referendum. And it just stuck with the norm because people voted in it and thought, oh, well, I don't know about this new thing. Let's keep with what we're doing. Yeah, it is completely. It's not a clear answer sometimes if you have that close to finish, isn't it? Yeah, we call it a dry subject. I promise you, it is not a dry subject. Literally, my current year 12 class, we have such fun lessons every lesson, like just talking about stuff and getting into kind of different debates about everything. But also, it is really important. It's okay. I wasn't taking it as a as a slight towards my subject. Um, it's it can be quite dry though, because when you have to learn certain bits about things, you have to understand how the constitution works. You have to understand how like MPs vote and things like that. So there are bits that you will be learning loads of new information, but how you're talking about it and how you're kind of like your views about all this information that you'll be learning will be really interesting. Yeah, definitely, Charlotte. It is interesting, and it's kind of like encouraging people to kind of participate in it more. I think this year, unfortunately, because of COVID and stuff like that, but in previous years, we've run, like politics class. We've got I'm going to get a model United Nations going in next year in school, so we can have those kind of like global political debates as well, which will be really great. Yes, the news is available, isn't it? But I think people still sometimes go down the pathway of not really caring or not really wanting to read about it. And again, you've got to kind of go with, people have their choice. We have civil rights, citizens' rights in this country. If you're really not interested in politics, we can't make you. But it's when it's kind of about your life, maybe people should be more informed. Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Alessandro. It is really widely available, isn't it? Yeah, if you one of the elections that we look at is a 1979 election, and literally the only place where they could get information from was if they kind of like contacted the political party or from newspapers, because there's no other way in which they could get information. But from like 2010 election, Twitter's been available, Facebook's been available, all the different kind of like, and even more now, we've got Instagram and everything now that people, TikTok, etc., that people can use to access information. So definitely people can choose or not choose to get involved. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like you saw, so Maddie, you're kind of saying like similar thing, isn't it? People can like do this fake news, like Donald Trump used to kind of that was his catchphrase, wasn't it? Yeah, all this fake news out there, and it is people can kind of manipulate and change the facts and spread rumors and misinformation, and like you both say, and then it's difficult to know what is the right information, isn't it? What's getting out there, definitely. Yeah, it is. It could be seen as unreliable and definitely biased. And I think you've got to think about that, isn't it? Like generally, the people that you're friends with are going to be people that have relatively similar views to you. So sometimes you're going to read stuff, and it's only going to be stuff like you agree with. Whereas out there, I try. It's really important when we're doing this subject to read newspapers and read kind of like media outlets that you don't necessarily agree with. Like read things that you kind of so you can get that balance. Like read stuff like I don't know the normal newspapers that I might read is something like the Eye or the Guardian. But I also go out there and I'll read the Daily Mail, the Times, the Financial Times, because they all have a different slant on things. So it's good to kind of like get both sides of the story, as it were. It's much easier. Yeah, social media is definitely full of nonsense, but you kind of have to kind of think about how they use that nonsense, isn't it, to kind of like get their message across. Um, yeah, I think so. I think kind of what we kind of got to go with, you've got to kind of think about what different media outlets are the best ones to kind of get some relatively unbiased information. I think certain news channels are relatively good, like the BBC is funded by public money. It is meant to be unbiased. I think Al Jazeera, to a certain extent, are relatively good at that. I think CNN are relatively good at that. You know, there are news that's out there that kind of try not to be as biased as others, but it's difficult. That's why, you know, reading around and you can kind of make your own opinion from all the different stuff that you read. Yeah, definitely, Tara. Yeah, definitely. People will go down that whole kind of, it's a trend. That's what people are interested in. And so they'll go down that pathway for sure. Like that kind of like massive kind of like Jeremy Corbyn got such a massive following, didn't he? Like loads of people on social media, loads of young people kind of like really supporting him. And it kind of took the Labour Party in a certain direction. So we'll definitely talk about that as well when we talk about political parties and look at like, you know, how sometimes when you make a party go too far one way or the other, it can cause real problems, can't it? Yes, definitely biased information, like you say, Maddie and Hannah. It can be difficult, kind of, because it can create extremism. Yeah, so people who maybe kind of Momentum is seen as a kind of slightly more left wing, far left wing intergroup, or let's say of the Labour Party, and kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got like the ERG in the Conservative Party, who is seen as kind of being definitely more right wing than the main kind of Conservative MP. So you do need to kind of like look at that that kind of grouping within kind of similar ideologies. Yeah, people do just repost and reshare stuff, don't they? Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it's difficult. Yeah, like you say, Dior, I do think you've got to try to look around the subject and make sure that you kind of like make your own opinion from it. There are ones, like I said, that try to be relatively unbiased, but I think they're always, you know, different journalists will have a slight bias to them. So how they present it won't always be the most unbiased way. Yeah, definitely. I agree, Maddie, with what you said about Dior. It's different, isn't it? Kind of, I'm just looking at the timing, and we have got into a good discussion, but we're going to run out of time. So that, like I said, I'll put the PowerPoint on to this team afterwards, so you can have a look at it. But you can just see the turnout there. It's kind of crazy. You think about it, how different people vote. And yes, we had a relatively high turnout for the Scottish independence vote, but still only 84% of people voted. So it's direct democracy is difficult in comparison to others. I'm just literally going to flash this last slide up. Just as a comparison to how US politics vote, we get into this in the kind of start of year 13. Essentially, we start talking about kind of like the voting and how really different it is. Like in America, they vote for the president. In this country, we vote for the party, we vote for our MP. So it's a very different way of voting than they have in America, which makes it really interesting. And again, like how people vote in America and they vote in this country, the media does have a lot to say about it for sure. So last slide, to make sure that we are kind of keeping within our timings, and because I want to make sure as well that we get plenty of time to have some questions and things like that as well. There is that link is a really interesting one to see. It takes a while because I think there's about 40 questions on it, but basically it will kind of place you in a certain kind of like location within the kind of different ideologies. So you'll find out kind of like if you're more socialist, if you're more conservative, if you're more kind of libertarian, if you're more authoritarian, and it will place you next kind of like, you know, different people in history as well. So you can kind of see where you are in comparison to like Barack Obama or Gandhi or Karl Marx, Hitler even is on there. So you can kind of see where you could kind of like pitch yourself, and that I'm just showing you on there where like different political parties are kind of based on that thing. So I think that's the really important thing. Going back to like what Dior said is like when we look at politics, we try and look at, you know, everyone's kind of viewpoints and everyone's different aspects, and then make our own judgment and our own opinions on it. When you write your essays, using the kind of bits of information from different sources and different kind of like ideas and concepts, things that we talk about in class, is where you get some really, really good essays written, because it is that's the kind of whole kind of point of politics at the end of it, is to kind of like make your own judgment from different things. So it's really good to have like people all over this spectrum in a class, because then you get like some really great ideas from different kind of opinions. We have quite a good like I said, in the current year 12 class, great discussions because people have some really different ideas from each other, and it helps everyone's political knowledge grow. So it's really, really good for that reason. They're not particularly authoritarian, Labour, but they do kind of, the interesting thing about Labour is that they have the benefit system, they have the NHS, we pay taxes. Authoritarian kind of basically means having structures in place to tell people what to do and how to kind of like run the country and things like that. If you're going down the kind of more libertarian path, you're kind of getting more into like less structure, a bit more freedom. I don't know if that, well, it's difficult to tell. Labour kind of, I think Labour moves from either side of that that political compass, depending on who the leader is and who who the kind of the current standing is. I would say that this is from like Tony Blair's thing, because this is looking at the debate about it. It's good to have that debate. Tony Blair was maybe more centre to centre right than it was. I'd say the circle's probably a little bit too far over, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, now I'd probably put them almost directly on that line between left and right wing. But yeah, that's part of the discussion, isn't it? They're where Labour goes to. If we had a Jeremy Corbyn government, for instance, I would have put it probably on the kind of mirror side of that square. Essentially, it's Labour is a very transitional one, and Conservatives, for instance, as well. Under David Cameron, you'd probably move that circle again, and you'd probably move the circle now under Margaret Thatcher as well. Conservatives, I would put them slightly higher up the authoritarian kind of side of it. But no. So we have got about 10 minutes left for questions, and I kind of whipped through a couple of those slides really quickly because I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for questions. So let me know any questions. If you want me to go back to a particular slide, if you've got a particular question about any of those ones that we talked about, then please do let me know, and I will switch back and we can kind of like go through any of the kind of the layouts of the papers again if you want to know about the structure in terms of like the exam questions, then we can talk about that. If there's I don't know, any other questions that you can probably think of, then please do let me know in the chat. That'd be great. Oh, that's okay, Maddie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I feel like I've talked too quickly, but you know, it's good that you've enjoyed it. Yep, I can switch back to that, Caitlin, no problem. Sorta, there's a few from Shenley, I would say, just looking at names, I recognise quite a few names, but I think there usually are a couple of people that do come from other schools. Like I've got a few from, well, in my geography class this year, I've got a couple from Law Grey, and I think there's one from another school in the politics class. Alessandro, debating is learning, but it's like high level learning. It's like you learn so much by discussing and talking about things that by the end of the lesson, you feel like you have learned an awful lot, and then you just kind of like use that time after the lesson to kind of like go through the notes that I give you. Like, you know, I'll use PowerPoints with you, but I won't get you to like generally copy the PowerPoints down. It'll be more talking around them, and then you kind of go back through your ideas about it afterwards. Do we cover? Yeah, we do. So sorry, Smith, again, I don't know what your first name is. It's only coming up as that. We look at her economic policy. We kind of look at her kind of the difference between Thatcher and Cameron. We don't go into huge amounts of detail about their kind of different economic policies, but we do compare them for sure, because we look at the difference in the different political parties. So we look at how Reagan did it compared to how Clinton did it, compared to how Obama did it. And we also look at kind of Thatcher compared to Cameron compared to Johnson. So yeah, we do it more as a comparative thing rather than as a detailed looking at the policies. Yeah, we don't have a politics GCSE, so it's absolutely fine. There's no politics GCSE as far as I'm aware. So we just do it at A level. So I would say, so long as you have got a really good kind of like enthusiasm for the subject and you want to kind of like get involved and learn more about it, then I would say you're completely not disadvantaged. You'll be absolutely fine. I think that is that is the key thing. So long as you have got the enthusiasm and a little bit of knowledge to help you along the way, it always helps. That's all you really need. No, we don't have politics GCSE. It's not really. I don't know. I don't think any examples offer it for GCSE. So you do. I mean, at Shenley, we cover it very, very briefly in life skills when you kind of talk about like democracy and voting. But that is literally it. And I think that's for like about, I don't know, like 3 or 4 lessons in life skills, and then that is all you do in terms of politics before that. So yeah, it's not quite so. Yeah, compulsory. I think that's the problem, isn't it, Maddie? When you make something compulsory that some people just really aren't interested in, it makes it hard, doesn't it? So it would be nice if we could. I would like to do like more drop down days, that kind of thing. And next year, obviously, when we're not kind of confined by COVID, hopefully we will be able to kind of like, you know, go into like people at different year groups assemblies and that kind of thing. Oh, that's okay, Saoirse. Thank you for that. You've got your other lessons to go to next, but I'll take that as a compliment. We now have people. Yeah, I think so. You do get uninformed people, but I think that's, you know, that's why you guys are here, and like, and you know, everyone else who studies politics in different schools around the country, and everyone else who kind of, you know, gets involved in political parties and those marches, like the marches we've had about Black Lives Matter, the climate change marches. You know, the more people that kind of get out there and get participating in different things, you don't have to belong to this political party to be political. And, you know, share your knowledge with people. I think it really helps. I remember sitting down having a discussion with one of my cousins. She couldn't decide who to vote for, and I just literally went through all the political parties for her and said, you know, this is what they're like, this is what they're like, and it helped her decide. You sacrifice music for it. Oh, well, you can still do, you know, there's so much going on in the music department, isn't there, that you will be able to kind of like participate in all the kind of extracurricular stuff they do, Charlotte. Don't worry. There is politics transition summer work, yeah. So that there's 2 tasks essentially. One is kind of like a presentation about a news story that you find interesting over the summer, and then there's kind of like a glossary essentially, because we'll use loads of new words, some that will be familiar to you when we kind of come back in September. So that's essentially a 2 task. So it's a presentation and it's kind of making your own glossary, but I've given you the words for the glossary, and literally the world is your oyster for that presentation. If you want to do something UK related, that would be great, because there's loads of stuff going on in UK politics at the moment. But if you want to kind of switch a bit global in, that's always interesting. Do you think? I feel some people could, Maddie. I think maybe I'm just very positive about it, but I feel like some people could tell me who the Conservatives were, who Labour are. I've had discussions with my form class. They're in year 9. I remember they were hilarious, but back before the 2019 election, they were all singing the Jeremy Corbyn song. It depends, won't it? The summer work, yes, it will all be in an email. I think Mrs. Pride is organising, sending out all the transition tasks for you guys, but I will upload it onto this team as well so that you can access it. So I've done it in a Word document. So yeah, you can get it on that. Oh, it's in the same block. That's a shame, Charlotte. Yeah. Unfortunately, like I said though, you know, music do like orchestra and all the different shows and everything like that will hopefully be going on this year. So hopefully there'll be loads of music that you can participate in as well that way. Yeah, that's it. Maybe laugh, Charlotte. I think that's a good point. Some people, I think you guys are quite probably more knowledgeable than lots of the adults are. And what do you say, Maddie? Sorry, the chat went quickly. Yes, people love a good, like we said before, isn't it? People love a good moan and love to kind of like be really kind of like critical about things, but maybe don't necessarily have that knowledge to kind of base their criticism on it. Yes, I'm sure we've all experienced a discussion with people where they've kind of said all this and that about the government or what the government's doing. There's been so much at the moment, hasn't there, about kind of like the rights and wrongs about COVID, etc. It's yeah, it's interesting. Oh, really? I guess in a kind of strange way, we do pay for our healthcare, like we pay taxes, and that's kind of part of where it comes from. But I mean, that's why I put Attlee on the first slide, because we've just had the celebration, isn't it? 73 years of the NHS, and I think we're so lucky that we don't have to pay for our healthcare like the Americans do, because yeah, you hear lots of horror stories from America about how much people get charged for different things, don't you? So it's crazy. So yes, we are lucky, but yeah, I guess in a weird way we pay for healthcare, but not really. Yes, exactly. I think that is part of the problem, isn't it? I think in America they really struggle with, private hospitals charging ridiculous amounts of money for things, and yet, some people can't afford to have basic surgery. Yes. No, that's good. You're moving school to do the politics A level. That's great, Sorsha. What's the point? Well, it's like, you could say that about everything, couldn't you? If you're kind of like going down that pathway, what's the point of anything? But actually, the politics kind of like shapes our lives, doesn't it? If we don't understand politics, how do we know who to vote for? How do we know what kind of like government we're going to end up with? It's really difficult, isn't it? Yes, they can't make money off our sickness for sure. It is tough, isn't it, that they can't do that, whereas in America, unfortunately, they do. Yeah, it is. It is really sad, isn't it? And it's really interesting when we talk about American politics. It kind of starting in year 13, you'll look at like the Republicans. Just generally, there's a few kind of like more kind of left-wing Republicans, but they just think it's going against their freedom to have to pay taxes to support other people to get healthcare. They just think it's really awful to be able to have to do that. Whereas generally the Democrats are more supportive of having some kind of like healthcare, like Obamacare. We'll talk about that and the kind of problems he had basically getting it through the Senate because they didn't agree with him because it was a Republican Senate at the time. Oh, Dior, you've just done it. You are what, slightly libertarian and slightly left wing. So that's cool. I don't know if you matched up to any like famous political figure on that quiz, but it does show you as well. Oops, the chat just went crazy there. Sorry, those people just put things in. It's kind of skipped down. Yeah, I think education, unfortunately, is one of those things as well that people worry about paying for. And actually, it's kind of like basic. When you look at the United Nations and their Millennium Goals and their development goals, having every child educated and having every child, like basic level of health is really, really important. Like that's how the world is going to develop, isn't it? Yours is libertarian left and a bit lower. Okay, that's cool. So it's kind of it'll be great to have some. Oh, yours was as well, Hannah. Yours is quite far into libertarian. That's really interesting because libertarians kind of that was the next biggest party in America after the Democrats and Republicans at the last kind of presidential election. So lots of people kind of like going down the libertarian pathway. Yes, I'd rather talk to an informed anybody, yeah, whether they're left wing or right wing, but just so long as you can like find out kind of their opinions. It's better to talk to someone who has a really opposite opinion to you, so you can kind of really challenge yourself. It's great when you do that. Yeah, it's really good to have lots of kind of people have an opinion on things for sure. I think it's really enjoyable to have these discussions. That's why, I love teaching this subject because you can get some really good debates going. Don't worry, we will do lots of learning though. Sandro seemed worried that we weren't going to do learning. We're going to do plenty of learning, but we do plenty of kind of like discussing it as well as we kind of get into it. So yes, you will have to do some writing. Okay, I'm selling it as it was all discussion, but you will have to do some writing occasionally because yeah, unfortunately that's how you're assessed. You're assessed on exam questions. We will have to kind of like work on your exam structure and things like that. So oh, I thought you were worried, Alessandra, that you won't get to do any writing. Yes, it's great. I love hearing a really extreme opinion. Like one of the current year 12s, Margaret Thatcher is his favourite prime minister. Like he loves Margaret Thatcher. And we had some really good discussions. Like he starts off some really good discussions about that. So yeah, it's really good to have that difference of opinion in a class. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have difference of opinions. Yeah, I think, Margaret Thatcher, there's a lot of positives we can say about her. We won't get into that now. Yes, that's the old phrase, isn't it? I remember my mum putting that on their Margaret Thatcher milk snatcher, because it was very much a thing. Only in London did they keep the free milk for young children because of the London Assembly. First female MP, PM, yeah, MP, PM, yes, she was the first female prime minister, which is amazing. You think about it, it took until 1979 for us to get our first female MP, and then it took us another however many years for Theresa May to become the next prime minister. So yeah, we definitely talk about, you know, like gender issues, ethnicity issues within kind of like our political system. Are we representative in parliament? We're getting there, but not quite enough. You know, we're still kind of haven't got quite the right balance in terms of like gender, ethnicity, different kind of role models, like in terms of like youth and public school versus kind of like comprehensive school. Yeah, it's all really interesting. I know it feels a bit kind of like, oh, bit. I'm not sure about that, but it's a bit sad, really. That kind of people did that. I mean, she was a very divisive person. So there are kind of like, you know, positives and negatives about her, but it was really, I thought that was kind of like, oh, yeah, a bit too soon. That. Yeah, well, no, go and read about her a little bit, Charlotte. There are on all the information that Ms. Pride will be sending you are kind of like the recommended course books, and there are a couple more different ones out there. And I have put on the summer transition task, basically a list of different things that you might be interested in reading. So it's definitely go out there and have a read about. There's some like really good documentaries out there as well. You know, if it's like a wet summer's day, there's some great documentaries on like Netflix and iPlayer relating to politics. So I put a couple of them onto the information about the transition task as well, so you can go and catch up on different things. She is a bit like Marmite, yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, this cabinet is pretty diverse. No, I agree with you, Alessandro. It's getting there, isn't it? But and I think in terms of the different political parties as well, kind of like where their representation comes. I think the Conservatives have done really well with their current cabinet, being really diverse with different people. But in terms of their party as a whole, they're less diverse than political parties like the Liberal Democrats and like Labour, for instance. They kind of have that comparison. Well, yeah, that is there, isn't it? And that's why it's interesting. Within different political parties, like the Conservatives, like Labour, like I know lots of people who voted for Labour who did not like Jeremy Corbyn. So it's that same kind of thing, isn't it? I think certain political figures are very divisive. She's one, Jeremy Corbyn's one. So yeah, definitely. Digital notes. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, people bring iPads into the lesson. I have a couple of students who bring iPads in. So yeah, you can do digital notes. That's absolutely fine. What I will ask you to do occasionally though is kind of like show me your notes. Like we have like folder reviews every so often to like check your notes, check you've got everything that you need. So if you are going to do it digitally, then either I don't know, you print it off or you email it to me or you upload it on Teams for me so I can have a quick flick through it, check it's all there. So lessons are going to, oh, it's a good question, Maddie. Lessons are going to an hour. But we will have some double lessons for sixth form. So you will have 2-hour lessons for all your subjects, but you will also have an hour lesson for your subjects. So yeah, so unfortunately, yes, I know the long lessons are a bit difficult to focus in. I think that's the good thing about A level is that we will be able to have, you know, like brain breaks essentially. And when we just sit and discuss, you don't have to get involved in every single debate. So you can kind of sit and have a think basically before you kind of like get back into it again. Yeah, Diane Abbott, Keir Starmer, definitely. They're quite divisive as well, aren't they? Keir Starmer, I'm still kind of like waiting to see where he goes. I think he's been a bit too quiet, hasn't he? So yeah. Right, yeah, you better go actually. I've just looked at the time. It's now 10:03. I knew we'd need lots of time for questions. Yes, I think so, Charlotte. I think that's the problem, isn't it? So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? People do that. Yeah, no problem at all. Yes, you better go off to your next session. So thank you so much for being so interactive. Even though we weren't in real life, it almost felt like we were in real life. So that's a good thing. And yeah, I'll see you in September. Really good. Thank you all of you for participating. I look forward to seeing you all next year in class. hopefully we'll have a good chat, definitely. I look forward to it all. When we're all back in September, it'd be great. Enjoy the rest of your days. Enjoy the rest of your subjects. No problem. I hope you managed to get some sleep, Alessandro. I was exhausted last night. And Joseph, I hope your feet are feeling better. No problem. Thanks, Maddie, for participating. Thanks, all of you.